Hey, this is Dan Harris, host of the 10% Happier podcast. I'm here to tell you about a new series we're running this September on 10% Happier. The goal is to help you do your life better. The series is called Reset. It's all about hitting the reset button in many of the most crucial areas of your life. Each week, we'll tackle a topic like how to reset your nervous system, how to reset your relationships, how to reset your career. We're going to bring on top-notch scientists and world-class meditation teachers to give you deep insights and actionable advice. It's all delivered with our trademark blend of skepticism, humor, credibility, and practicality. 10% Happier is self-help for smart people. Come join the party.
In the continuation of our building process, in episode 1, we talked about starting where you stand, the idea of owning your present moment and launching from exactly where you are with no more waiting and kind of accepting your new foundation. Then in episode 2, we went on to talk about the business of being you, the idea of finding your personal equity and understanding kind of like your name as your forever brand, okay? Understanding your self-worth and identity and the value within your life and business. Moving on to episode 3, we got into understanding how you are the blueprint, okay, where we looked at reinforcing all the gifts and skills and behaviors that we already have to use as our strengths. And that is what brings me to where we are today, episode 4. Vulnerability is strategy. All right, this is Mel Code. What's up, world? Welcome back to Mel Code episode 4. We in here, baby. I'm your host, Stefan AMIR, aka Steph Mel, and I'd like to welcome you back to our show. Yes, our show. Me and yours. Because you know this your show. Okay, so as I said in our intro title, we're going to talk about how vulnerability is strategy. Now, this is a very personal episode to me simply because this is something that, if I'm going to be quite honest, is even I'm learning to do. A lot of you that may know me, depending on how you've met me or at what point in my journey you've met me, may see me through a different lens. Some, dancer background, whether it's the artistry background. For some people, it's like my design background, like a lot of different, you wear a lot of different masks. One of the things that is kind of new to me is putting my business executive face forward. This is kind of new territory for me because I've kind of always been in the edgy artist space where it's kind of the talent that speaks for itself, but now I'm in a space where it's the intellect and the information and the service to others that I'm in the space of operating from, and everything that I'm sharing with you guys is almost in real time. It's not just like, I'm doing this per se with all of it coming from experience. There's a large portion of it that does come from experience, but then parts like this specifically, as I become more personable and more relatable, they're going to come through this medium. It's a part of why I wanted to have this medium, because sometimes it's hard to translate or communicate with your different audiences with a lot of different walks of life, and communicate with all your different audiences in the mediums that they respond to. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, how you can use your vulnerabilities as strategies. Okay. Before we get into code 1, as I said in our intro, I kind of went through, kind of a recap of what we discussed in these first 3 episodes. And now what I want to do is kind of the things that we didn't use, the things that we might have put to the side as we came up with our lists, for, starting where you stand and being your own blueprints, etc. There's a list of, say, cons, could be viewed as quote unquote weaknesses and all these other things, but now I'm going to explain what we do with those. Code 1, let's debunk. Okay, there is strength in exposure. Okay, so let's debunk the myth that vulnerability equals weakness. All right, we're going to get that out the window. That's just not how we operate over here. Okay. I believe personally that openness creates leverage. whether it's in business, whether it's in creative networking, negotiations, your personal branding, like it all creates leverage because there are many different peoples of many different walks of life, and all of these things, what may not relate to one person may relate to another person. Not everything's everyone's cup of tea. But I believe that leaning into those will definitely help you develop more of a core audience, or depending on, your following, maybe even more of a, I know it's kind of has a negative connotation over it, but a cult following. Find the balance of like tying in your own experiences where like sharing your truth can unlock new opportunities or alliances or collaborations. So like, for example, sometimes in my entertainment world bubble, it's not like we're a bunch of signed established artists where it's two labels putting two artists together. These are two artists who, you've met at a show, or, you've met on your own time, or maybe you've met through a mutual friend, or you may have met, out and about and whatever. And it's usually the personal conversations, the getting the vibe of the other person that kind of develops more of the bond that leads into the beauty of the collaboration. Meaning that some of the best songs, music videos, stories, books, movies are created off of the sharing of trauma. And a lot of people turning their trauma into power and kind of re-owning it. That may sound heavy, but it's the truth. I feel like a lot of music artists have a lot of their most successful records are their most personable records, the ones that, they're sharing how they felt through the heartbreak. They're sharing, their disgust with, the behavior of a generation. Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, a lot of the more established entertainers talk about, how the world is, how the world functions, Beyonce and Kendrick Lamar, and there's a lot of artists that are very vocal about where they stand from a political standpoint that unifies them with their audience, and other times it can work against them and against their brands, which actually brings me to my next point. Code 2, strategic transparency. Okay, like you need to be able to distinguish like between oversharing and intentional sharing, and what to say, when to say it, and how to say it, or how to share it. So like, there are some things that are worth bringing to the forefront, and there are some things that are just not worth it. We don't need to know everything. There are just some things that are just unnecessary for the public to know. They're just not necessary. But I do have a way to help you distinguish what is and what isn't. Okay? Basically, in a simple filter question, does this product, does this advice, do any of these things that I'm about to share publicly, do they advance my connection to my audience? Do they expand on my credibility or my cause? If yes, then it could be considered strategic. Okay? What you reveal can guide the narrative around you rather than just leaving others to fill in the blanks, make up whatever. You have the ability to kind of set your backstory. Okay? And that right there becomes a part of your overall maybe marketing pitch and hook. I hate to use these examples, but imagine you have, them late night infomercials on, and have you ever been hurt by a auto accident? If so, call us at blah 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 blah. Them kind of infomercials, they're playing on the emotional connection that you have or your loved one may have to this traumatic moment. I don't really want to use that example, but that's the first example that comes to mind. But it's sharing these kinds of moments of vulnerability and playing on these things that a lot of bigger major companies do. Now, from a smaller business and smaller branding standpoint, and we're going to use morally good value, you want to be as personable as possible, depending on what your business is. Like, if you are someone who wants to start a business cleaning homes, like, use that, like, how you want to clean, how you love cleaning, how you grew up in an environment where your grandmother cleaned and cooked and whatever, and it gave you this love of cleaning and products, or whatever. Like, share these things. Don't think it's lame or, I'm too much of a wussy or whatever comes with that. Chalk all of that. When we talk about everything that we've been talking about in these last couple of episodes, like, it's about understanding how everything that you have in the pot is saucy. You understand what I'm saying? Everything you have in the pot is saucy. I do believe it is possible to find the balance in between the things that you do share that will work to your benefit, and the things that are just not worth sharing, or the things that you're able to definitely keep reserved for yourself. Being a public brand and a public figure is one thing, but you're also a human being, and there needs to be things that you keep to yourself that should be for yourself. Okay? I basically want you to turn that vulnerability into real authority. Again, like, acknowledge your shortcomings, your mistakes, your past failures, all of these things that position you as more credible because you've lived it, you've done it. You're a leader who has gone through the experience enough to go back and share. You feel me? Your audiences, your clients, your collaborators, they respond more positively to this kind of like humanized expert, other than like flawless industry figure, and that's kind of why I've created this platform, because it allows me to be that more personable figure. Code 2, strategic transparency. Okay? We talk about distinguishing the difference between, your oversharing and your intentional sharing. What needs to be revealed, and, what you can kind of keep to yourself. And then, of course, asking yourself the question, does what I'm about to share advance my connection or my credibility or my cause? Remember, if yes, then it can be considered strategic. And then how you can basically build a narrative around you so that your audience does not have to fill in the blanks. And again, giving your backstory. Okay, and then in code 3, we talked about turning your vulnerability into authority. Okay, real authenticity, acknowledging your shortcomings, your mistakes, your past failures, and remembering how it can position you to be a much more relatable and credible leader. That your audience and collaborators can respond more positively to, and how all of this can become a part of your storytelling and your backstory for your overall marketing pitches. Let's take all of that and let's get into the AMIR Method. The AMIR Method. Okay, AMIR: analyze, manifest, implement, reinvent. Okay, so A, analyze. Let's look at the myth. The myth versus reality of vulnerability. Okay, getting rid of that myth. Okay, the myth that vulnerability equals weakness. Out of here. Get it out of here. Okay? Recognizing the environment, the right time, position, place to share these things. Whether it's business, creative, or personal, where your openness builds trust rather than, erupts it. Identifying moments where your guardedness might maybe cost you a connection or opportunity, collaboration. As I said in my previous example, a lot of my best collaborations have come with the people I've been able to, kind of relate to on a more personable level. Okay, so that was A. M, manifest. Okay, intentionally decide what to reveal and why. Intentionally remembering how, going back to asking yourself the question, does this advance my connection, my credibility for my cause? If yes, it's possibly maybe strategic. If you gotta ask a person or two that you're really close to, ask them. Don't be afraid. Envision how your vulnerability could maybe serve your long-term goals. As I said, that credibility, that relationship building, and that audience loyalty. We'll say audience loyalty. Audience loyalty. I should have said that earlier. There we go. Audience loyalty. See, I'm being human. This is not going to be no perfectly edited episode. Like, yes, I make mistakes. Yes, and then just picture the ripple effect overall. Just the ripple effect that it'll have. People share people's stories. That's word of mouth. That human experience. And I feel like even now, what would make you stand out is we need more of that today. I think that we need more transparency in some areas, and maybe some areas I don't think we need as much. But again, find your special sauce, find your special balance between the two. Okay. Implement. Okay, I implement. Using that strategic transparency as a filter to kind of guide you. Okay. Incorporate more human moments. You feel me? Maybe like your lessons learned. Be honest about things you're challenged with. Like I was earlier. Like this is new territory for me. Being this honest, being this transparent. Presenting myself not as polished. Like it's new territory for me. I'm still getting accustomed to it, but I'm jumping all in and getting back into it. I say back into it because, again, as I've mentioned in our first episode, this is technically my second podcast, but my first podcast was so leisure, so recreational that it was kind of like, it kind of went along the lines of kind of like the edgy energy that I kind of already give off. But this right here, this energy, this is something only people who have worked with me professionally really get to see. And this is the side of me that I'm now getting to want to share with the world. And it's a part of what I'm implementing into my life now. Even coming up with the episodes, taking notes on what it is I want to talk about. Like, it's new territory for me, having to stop and think and take a note. It's not like writing a song where in my personal writing space, it's kind of like I kind of reminisce on the feeling. I don't need the words or things to be reminded of it. It's just an energy. That's just a part of my personal process. So this, having to stop and think and jot down notes to be, and organizing my thoughts to be shareable with the public, new territory. I can do it with music. It's different for me to do it this way, publicly. So yeah, that's a part of my implement. Share with intent, as I'm doing now. Share with intent, enough to engage, but not enough to destabilize. Okay, so I want to help. I want to share what I know. I want to enlighten, open, teach, and guide the independent route, and that's what I'm doing as a part of the implement. And I encourage you to do the same, to bring us into our reinvent. Kind of shifting your personal or your brand narrative from untouchable to a trusted guide, as I've mentioned, to, again, I want to be human. I don't want to be robotic. Okay. Letting your vulnerability kind of fuel your innovation. I already do that musically, and it was time that I shifted it into the other avenues and what I go into. As I said, I'm a Pisces, and we're highly emotionally led beings. And when you learn and do the self-work and kind of begin to understand it as a superpower, you can really make it work for you. And a part of my artistic charm that I've always had is expressing myself through my art. And I kind of felt like my urge for human connection and my urge for bigger and better within my life has led me down this platform, and here we are. It's a part of my reinvent. I want to be a guide that everyone can trust, and a part of that is being open, honest, and as transparent as possible, respectably. Emphasis on the respectable part. And it just is what it is. I'm testing some of my broader ideas in this space because I'm just not afraid, and I'm just not only am I not afraid, but I'm also not afraid of you seeing me try. Okay, that's the best way I can explain it as humanly as possible. You're going to see me F up, pick myself up, but definitely try again. Like, evolve how you present yourself so that your openness becomes active advantage, not like a reactive defense. All right, like, don't let no one have one up over you. Like, you feel what I'm saying? Like, here are my demons, I own it, fuck with me. Attached to this episode will be kind of like episode 4.5. I know with this episode, there's a lot of things that can be heavy, and I kind of just want to go into maybe a kind of a rapid fire thought process, but I want to separate it from the kind of long form content episode. So we have episode 4 and then episode 4.5. Okay, And also included in episode 4.5 will be some additional information on some really cool opportunities for you guys. My name is Stefan Amir, aka Steph Melvin, and this has been episode 4 of Mel Code. All right, thank you guys.